Welcome to Reddit World's first ever video. This video tells of a story that comes from the No Sleep subreddit. Enjoy. Elena had always been a creature of habit, but tonight was different. The quiet suburban streets seemed to press in on her as she fumbled with her keys, her hand trembling slightly. The evening had turned cooler than usual, and a fog had begun to creep in from the edges of town, swirling around her ankles like a living thing. Inside her modest home, the silence was a welcome contrast to the city's bustling noise. She made her way to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, her footsteps echoing off the hardwood floors. The house creaked and groaned as if it were settling in for the night, and Elena sighed, shaking off the odd feeling that clung to her. As the kettle began to whistle, she was startled by a sudden thud from upstairs. She froze, her heart pounding. She strained to hear any subsequent sounds, but was met only with the rhythmic hum of the kettle. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe the house settling again. It was an old place after all. Pouring her tea, she tried to focus on the comforting warmth of the cup in her hands, but the uneasy feeling lingered. As she sipped, another noise, a soft, scuttling sound, drifted down from the attic. Elena's blood ran cold. The attic was cluttered with old furniture and forgotten belongings. No one had been up there in years. Resolute to prove her fears irrational, Elena put down her cup and ascended the stairs. The steps groaned under her weight, and she felt as though the house was watching her, each creak and moan accentuating her anxiety. At the top of the stairs, she hesitated for a moment before pushing open the attic door. A slant of moonlight filtered through a small window, casting eerie shadows on the old trunks and boxes. Elena's flashlight cut through the darkness, its beam trembling as she swept it around the cluttered space. The scuttling sound was now more pronounced, echoing around her. She took a deep breath and moved towards the corner where the noise seemed to be coming from. Her flashlight fell upon an old, battered trunk she hadn't seen before. The sound was coming from inside. Her pulse quickened, but she steeled herself, slowly lifting the trunk's heavy lid. Inside was a jumble of dusty clothes and yellowing papers, but nothing that seemed alive. The scuttling grew louder, more frantic. Elena's hands shook as she reached into the trunk, moving the old garments aside. Her fingers brushed against something cold and clammy. She pulled back with a gasp. Just beneath the clothes, the source of the noise was revealed, a small, ragged stuffed rabbit, its button eyes staring blankly, its fur matted and torn. A gust of cold air swept through the attic, extinguishing the beam of her flashlight. Elena was plunged into darkness, her breath catching in her throat. In the pitch black, she could hear it again, a low, scraping sound, as if something was dragging itself across the floor. Her heart pounded in her chest as she felt a presence behind her. The scuttling grew louder, closer. Elena spun around, but there was nothing but darkness and the oppressive silence of the attic. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered back to life on its own, casting a stark beam across the room. Elena's breath hitched as she saw it, a figure hunched over the edge of the attic's far corner. It was pale and gaunt, its skin stretched tight over its bones. Its eyes were hollow pits, reflecting the flashlight's beam. The figure moved with a jerky, unnatural grace, and Elena stumbled backwards, knocking over a stack of old books. The figure's gaze locked onto hers, its mouth stretching into a grotesque, silent scream. Without thinking, Elena fled down the stairs, the sound of the figure's movements echoing behind her. She burst through the front door, not stopping until she was outside, the cool night air stinging her lungs. She glanced back at the house, the attic window now dark and empty. Elena spent the rest of the night sitting in her car, watching the house with wary eyes. She never went back into the attic. And though she could never explain what she had seen, she knew one thing for certain. The noises would always be there, lurking in the shadows of that old whispering house. If you enjoyed this story, then like and subscribe. I'm open to suggestions, so be sure to leave a comment as well.